So if you're just joining us here, I am Mr. Radical. I am your hostess with the mostest. The show is Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. We'll be starting up at 6 o'clock. We'll bring up some boxes and we'll have some guests up. And as usual, what I'm hoping for is that if you're not from North America, that you'll stick around and join us in the box and give us a more international perspective on the things that are happening in the world today. I think it'll be a great discussion, so stick around here. We'll be starting up at 6 o'clock. Just going to do a little bit of maintenance here, if you'll just bear with me. We'll start by putting some boxes up. So Marcus, thanks for coming in. Melissa, thanks for coming in. Pasty Native, welcome. If you're just joining us here, I am your host, Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. And I think today we need to discuss how we are being pigeonholed in the West. As far as basically here in Canada, we have the Liberals and the Conservatives. Same thing in America. No one's really offering a convincing third option. Poor Elizabeth May and the Green Party has, unfortunately, as much as I kind of like Elizabeth May on a personal level, the reality is that the Green Party is kind of in an abject failure, and I think anybody would have a hard time arguing different on that point. The NDP under Jagmeet Singh have essentially imploded. They've really just kind of fallen apart. So again, that third option has basically been taken away from Canadian politics. We don't have a viable third option, and neither does anybody in the States. Now, this has caused lots of discussion, but I think what's happening now is we are being engineered more toward a particular avenue of voting, and I think that anything that could possibly interfere with that two-party system has essentially been shut down by the two parties, much like operating a business. They are basically closing down the competition, and no one has had the charisma or the funding behind them to kind of step into that role and give people a third option. So I think that's kind of what the discussion should be today. I think we're getting pigeonholed somewhat in what we call democracy. So and what I'm hoping is that somebody is watching from our international audience, somebody that isn't from North America. If you want to pop in, please invite yourself into the box here. I'd love to have you aboard and give us a little bit of an international flavor to the discussion tonight and give us an international perspective. Perspective is a word you're going to hear me use an awful lot. So if you're there, invite yourself in, please, into the box. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. We'll be starting at 6 o'clock here. And what I think we need to talk about today is how we're being railroaded into the two-party system. As much as the NDP. Oh, hang on. We're having trouble again with audio. All right. Am I coming through all right as far as my voice and everything coming through? If somebody could just maybe touch in on there. But I think, like I said, what we really need to discuss today is how, as much as we call it a democracy, I think it's starting to look in a lot of ways not particularly like a democracy. A democracy should offer some sort of balance in different perspectives, and we don't have balance in perspectives. We simply have the left and the right. I don't think either one represents the majority of the population in its entirety by any stretch of the imagination. So I think a considerable part of the population is always going to be dissatisfied with the choice that they're making, whether they tend to lean toward conservative or whether they tend to lean toward Republican. So I think that's kind of the discussion for tonight. If you want, invite yourself up into the box. If you're watching from our international audience, I'm hoping that you'll invite yourself into the box. We'd love to get some international perspective from somebody that isn't living here in North America. So if you're just joining in, please invite yourself up here. We're going to be starting the show in just a couple of minutes here and start the talking points and see what's going on. And we'll go from there. Grandma Sandy, welcome to the show.
Hi. I've never had the privilege of speaking with you. I'm so honored.
You're too kind, but yeah, there's not a lot of honor there, but I appreciate it all nonetheless.
So, what was your original question? Because you had a couple in there.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about basically I want to talk about the implosion of the NDP, and I want to discuss how it seems like no matter what comes up, we constantly get railroaded into a choice essentially between left and right, and we aren't really given a lot of other options. And I thought maybe that Jagmeet Singh and the NDP could actually come in and offer us some type of a third party, and the NDP have imploded.
I wish the NDP would give a an explanation, anything, any part of the party to what's going on, because I really don't understand. And I really think that we don't have a lot of choices right now. It's either left or right. I agree with you there. And I guess I'm going to stay left because I don't know what else to do. And my kids are asking me my opinion because I've been following politics for, 30, 40 years. And just earlier today, they called and asked me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to make anyone in the live upset, but I told them who I was voting for. And I really, honestly don't see any other way to go but
Yeah,
liberal. Sorry,
yeah,
but liberal.
and I don't think that you're the only one. I don't think you're the only one that feels that way. So, I'm just gonna let me just do bring you up. Calvin Stevens, if I could get you both to mute your mics for just a minute here, I'm going to start up at 6 o'clock. So we're just going to start up the show here. Welcome aboard, everybody. We are the Beaver Politics Network. The show is Radicalized. I am your hostess with the mostest, Mr. Radical. The Beaver Politics Network is knowledge through discourse. The only way that happens is through open discussion about the topics and getting different viewpoints. Perspective and is a word you're going to hear me use often, and that is what the Beaver Politics Network and Radicalized is all about: is offering perspective. We want to hear from all sides of the equation. The only way that happens is if everybody gets a chance to talk, and if the discussion is respectful. As soon as you descend into any type of name calling or mudslinging, you will simply be asked to leave. That's how we operate. We are by the people because we are the people. Welcome to the show. I'm hoping that if you're watching from our international audience, I'm hoping that you'll pop up. If you're not living here in North America, I'm hoping that you'll pop up and invite yourself up into the box. We'd love to get a little bit more perspective from an international audience about what we have going on here. But I think today the topic has to be the semblance of what we are calling democracy, because we are essentially every single election voting strictly between liberals and conservatives. Now, that is obviously not going to lend to everybody walking away. being happy about their vote one way or another. I know a lot of centrists are probably voting conservative even though they don't want to, and same thing on the left side as well. However, what we saw this time around is we honestly thought at 1.6 months ago that the NDP here in Canada under Jagmeet Singh would possibly give us a viable third option. And what we have seen in the last 6 months is essentially the NDP implode. There has been lots of accusations that they turned their backs on a lot of their content creators that they asked to make content for them. And that's where we are. We are essentially back to voting liberal and conservative once again. And this seems to be what the makeup of Western democracy is. How do we change this? How do we get somebody in there that has a viable third option for the public, that can actually talk to the public, but also has the financial backing and the financial know-how on how to run a legitimate party so they can actually stay in the race? So that's kind of the topic. Two party systems, what happened to the NDP here in Canada. So if you're just joining the show, remember, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. Invite your friends over. I think it's going to be a great discussion. So I just want to thank Grandma Sandy and Calvin. Welcome to the show. I don't think I'll need to ask you your age. I think you look pretty good from here. You've had a chance to hear what I had to say. What do you have? What do you have to say on that topic?
Um, I'm not too familiar with the implosion with the NDPs. I haven't followed that much of it. I've been trying to detox from politics for a couple
I
of days,
did.
but that didn't work. There's some situations happening here in Cape Breton that got my attention. But how do we get away from having just an alternative two-party system here in Canada? Basically, we have to change the mindset of the people. All our politicians are cookie cutter politicians. They are all lawyers or business owners, majority of them. We actually have to move away from that mindset and actually start electing and nominating people that are nurses, teachers, professors, people that actually care about the human condition. That's my personal perspective, anyways. Yes, we need a good mix of everybody. I mean, we still need lawyers and business owners in there too, but right now it's dominated by those two fields. And the only way we can get rid of the trajectory of politics in Canada is if we have a more inclusive political atmosphere. And when you look at those trades, when you look at business owners and lawyers, you have to think about what is their primary trait as a profession. It's aggression, it's tactics, it's manipulation. And this is, unfortunately, has infiltrated our political system. But if we started electing professors, teachers, and nurses, then we have somebody that actually cares about the human condition. And I'm hoping that I'm still alive someday, that we actually have a nurse that's a prime minister. You know, that's just my personal take, anyways.
You know, Calvin, I I couldn't agree with you more in a lot of ways because I've often said, when I look at the business community, one of the profound things that I found about the mindset of a lot of the higher ups in the business community is that when they go and look at an organizational decision, let's say, they get their whole brain trust together and they run their computer simulations and they call the accountants and they run all of the accounts. And then they decide whether or not they're going to go ahead with that project. Uh, if I was in that position myself, one of the first things that I would do is I would go to the people that are working on the ground, that work that problem every day, that deal with the specifics of that problem every day. And that is where I would start to nitpick and look for understanding and how to solve the problems from the ground up. Because far too many of our decision making scenarios, I believe, right now are always top down decisions. And that's the type of mentality that invades top down decisions. If I'm making a decision, I talk to the people that are on the ground, the boots that are on the ground, because they are the ones that deal with it on a day to day basis. And if anybody is going to know how to improve something or make it better or what changes need to be put in place, it's the people working the damn job. Beautiful. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, sir. How are you this evening?
Right as rain.
Excellent, excellent. Calvin, I have to say I agree with you completely on that one. Whatever happened to, and I guess I have to look at it this way. I think that too many people, and let's not get anybody get upset here, but the term, I'll just say awake. We'll say it that way so it doesn't trigger anybody. I don't have a problem with anybody being aware of others around them. And I think that more of us need to be aware of others around us. Um, More or less because if we don't, we're not going to check in on what's going on with other people. And I think this is, in all honesty, where a lot of this stuff has started in the we're not going to talk to others. Oh, you're different than me, but you don't really know that person. So are they much different because they just look different than you? Maybe they have the same thoughts that you have. Maybe they have some good ideas that would help us move, a policy move forward, or, a good reasoning to work with other people. It's always so much of, it is someone mentioned in the comments the two parties that doesn't get anything done, and we've seen that over the years. I appreciate when you're making the point of talking about having the NDP, that the NDP have really just disappointed, and I'm not sure what had happened. I was a very respectful of Jack Layton. I thought he was a wonderful man. I
Yep.
also thought that Thomas Mulcair was too, but I have seen even him since he's left, he has changed. He has changed a lot himself. And I've seen, I hate to say it, Jagmeet seems to have turned very much to someone who represents orange in the US. That's, I think, the connection. And I find that very scary. Why is it all of a sudden that he is becoming so, you know, it's a negative. There seems to be a lot of like loathing for others that are happening in the NDP party, which was the total opposite of the NDP. So I don't know what is happening here, and I think that we need to sit back and say, what's going on? Is it that everybody's party needs to have a change in leadership at this point? Because we can see we had the Liberal go from fourth to first. What is happening here, right? If you didn't like, for whatever reason, right? And I get it, change has to be done. But in seeing what is happening into the Conservatives and seeing what's happening into the NDP, I definitely think that the leaderships need to be changed. It's time to get rid of some of these people. Their ideas are not working for everybody, and I think that's the point. We are a country of people. It's not just one group that we need to be focused on. We need to focus on everybody, and I think that's the point. People are being left out to the side. Well, you don't care about me. I'm not this person, or I don't have this, or I'm not that, or I don't share this religion. Well, that doesn't matter. You're still human. You're still here, and we need to look at other people that way. And that's just my opinion on it.
hmm Now, beautiful. Do you, Miss Radical has been floating this idea, but do you think that the Conservatives are going to pitch Pierre before the election?
I have to say that I am in 75% agreement with her on that one. Because they have to realize at this stage in the game, there is so much garbage that is being tossed out by that one particular voice. And just because, and I go back to the history in the conversations of that, and I know T-Jack and I have had that conversation before. History is always going to be repeating itself. If we are not careful, we are going down a very, very slippery slope. And just as a female and a woman, I have to say, we have to really stand up and say, let's just back up the bus here. I have seen far too many conservative men who are very much, they're being said, we need to be quiet, as in women. We allowed you to have a vote. No, you didn't allow us to have a vote. We have the right to vote just as much as you folks do, as men do. And I can't understand why there's so many people who don't like the idea that, I hate to put it out there, but if women actually ran the world, none of the garbage that is happening would be happening at this stage in the game. We wouldn't be sitting here and asking women to make choices or having someone make the choice for us on what is happening. And if I hear biological clock one more time, I'm going to lose it, because who are you? Or how is this person, this leader, which I again question, how is this person going to tell me what to do with my body or any other person's body? And I'm having a massive problem with that point. You get what you pay for. And I think that if he continues on the path that he's on, we've already seen, shortly after he was elected as leader, that a certain bill came out and they all voted to say, we want to make a change to women's health.
Mhm.
He is all saying, and now everyone's saying, oh no, he's not making these changes. But you know what? Let's look at who the contributors were to his campaign to become leader of the party. When the second largest contributor is an anti-abortion coalition, they're going to want what they paid for. That is plain and simple. And they are going to want him to say, hey, now, we put you into place. We want to make sure that we get what we want. And that's it. Well, I'm sorry that 1% of the world runs 99% of it, and the 99% of us have to fight over the 1. We need to make change for everybody. And no, I don't want someone telling me we need to do this because that's what I want. No, you don't get to do that. That's why we have voting. That's why we have a democracy. That's why we have government. We get to make the choice of who goes and sits there to represent us, to, make us more prosperous, to provide us with better homes, with a better education, making sure that we have health care, and those kinds of things that are happening. And I'm just to the point thinking that it's time that they did wise up and say, yeah, you know what? You're really not making us look really good here. You're really making us look bad, and it needs to stop. So I don't know. I would hope, fingers crossed, that they would change. But I don't know. 25% of me still says, they're probably going to hang on to him. But I don't know. 3 failed non-confidence votes. The man should have been out after 2. 1, they would have questioned. 1, okay, yeah, whatever. 2, they should actually question the leadership of him at that point in time. After the 3rd one, they should have said, no, you're gone, and we need a new leader. Had they gone with Jean Charest, they would never be having the garbage that's happening here at this time. And I get it. But Canada is not the U.S., and we don't need Trump-style politics here.
But India wanted pee-pee in there.
And
India
I don't.
wanted pee-pee in there.
I don't. No.
Can I
No.
chime in?
Yay, Miss Radical.
Hi, how is everyone tonight?
Hi.
Great, thanks.
Good stuff. I'm just going to share with you what was shared with me last summer, and it was David Wallace. He introduced the Klondike Papers to Canadians. He was kind of like the political fixer for Stephen Harper. So he did really dirty things for Stephen Harper, so Harper didn't get his hands dirty. So last summer he pops up, and he almost never shows up on TikTok. And he shows up super randomly in the middle of the afternoon. And he says that the mark for PM is not Pierre Poilievre, and that the Conservatives have known for a long time that he's far too unlikable to become the PM. But he is willing to do the dirty work.
Right.
So they say, or Mr. Wallace says, the mark for PM is going to be Doug Ford. And at the time, if you think back to last summer, the Conservative had a 30-point gain, or how big was the point? It was huge gain on Liberals, and it wasn't looking very good. But I kept thinking, no, who would like Doug Ford after all this time? Like, look at all the awful things he's done. to
Agreed.
Ontario, right? And then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, Captain Canada comes to the rescue. Thank you, Jesus. And first we learn after, we learn through the election in Ontario how connected Doug Ford is personally to Trump. Trump is his personal Jesus. Suddenly, Doug Ford is Captain Canada. No, you can't do the tariffs. He's got commercials on Fox News in the United States. And now I'm beginning to wonder if Mr. Wallace is right. Because I don't believe Pierre Poilievre's campaign could just all of a sudden F everything up. They've been running so well for so long. Jenny B might be a lot of things. Why all of a sudden now is she falling apart? Or is it just part of the plan for her to fall apart right now? Because Captain Canada is supposed to be in next. Conservatives do not play to lose, and they will do anything to win. Anything is on the table. And this has the stamp of Linda McMahon and the WWE all over it, just like the fake blood parcel on the wannabe assassination with Trump. They're all alike. They're all doing the same plan. This is a long game plan. I know I sound crazy. I'm okay with that. I watch Days of Our Lives.
Can I
Yeah.
chime in here?
Yep.
So,
So,
democracy isn't promised to anybody. And we've been so comfortable living on this side of the world with a nice neighbor that we've never had to face the reality of a hostile neighbor. So we have been complacent and comfortable in our way of life. You mentioned the topic here about the global politics and how the psychology of all this came to be. I'm kind of interested in that too because I follow the world markets and I follow conflicts or disasters because it all affects the markets, right? I've
absolutely.
noticed this trend a long time ago when you have a small group of radical people that have or feel like their power is threatened and they become radicalized. It's happened in the EU, Britain. It's happened in every country. Now, during the COVID era, we were all severely traumatized with that virus. So, in my personal opinion, the effects of that psychologically has still not been studied properly because not enough time has come by. So, in my personal opinion, this political upheaval is all across the world. It's not uncommon in the United States. It's not unique to the United States. It's not unique to Canada. It's actually all over the world. And if you understand the narcissistic cycle in any shape or form, you know you have to have some kind of trauma to begin the process of indoctrinating somebody in the narcissistic abuse cycle. Our starting point happened way before that, but what accelerated it was the COVID disease. That's when a lot of people in society had elevated levels of cortisol in their systems. It doesn't help that our diet increases that too. But it left human beings in a fragile state of mind. And it doesn't matter how smart you are or how educated you are susceptible to cortisol. It doesn't matter who you are. And because of the increased level of cortisol, it began to decrease the critical thinking level skills of people in society. And when that happened, we start acting more animalistic than civilized society. And this is why you see more male aggression towards women. This is why you see more aggression towards trade and politics. It's very polarized. Then you also we've basically had the perfect storm. Then you have events that happen historically. You've had the civil rights movement, where after it happened, a small portion of the population felt they have lost a little bit of perceived power. Then you had the feminist movement, and again, you have a small portion of society that feels like they've lost a little bit of perceived power. Then you have the new technology change where everybody's on their computers all the time and not really socializing and developing that skill that they need for society. With a combination of everything that has happened, it becomes a perfect storm for an unhealthy global society. And I think this is what's happened. And then we have political parties that are capitalizing on this unhealthy atmosphere to propagate polarization to win elections. And it works. Look at Donald Trump, a complete moron, but is the head of one of the most powerful countries in the world militarily.
Yep.
And this is what I'm scared that could happen to Canada with Pierre Poilievre. It's everything is polarized, and he is the one that started the polarization in Canada. Playing victim, spewing hate and negativity against First Nations, the LGBTQ plus community, females and ethnic minorities, and immigrants. The mustache man, I can't really say it on here, his name, did the exact same thing in Germany. He used
Absolutely.
hate and he used polarization to gain traction and seize power. Vladimir did the same thing. Viktor
And
Orban did the
who's
same
doing
thing.
it now?
Yes, Viktor Orban did the same thing.
Yep.
They did this in India too, but luckily India was paused because of the COVID outbreak. So they haven't really gotten to that stage yet, but they're very, very close. They're on like the precipice before they get into that. Israel is another one. And unfortunately, a lot of countries are victim to this mentality. I hope to God that people actually see what's going on in the United States. We are Canadians. We are not aggressive. We are not polarizing. We are actually very accepting of different cultures. I'm from the First Nation community. We were accepting of all the immigrants that came to this world. We helped them survive, and we've prospered together. I mean, there's a lot of atrocities that happened to my people over the years, but forgiveness is a big component to being human and being able to succeed. But what I see in society now is very scary. Just an incident here in Cape Breton happened yesterday and today. One of the political parties, the Conservatives, Anna Manley, she's running as an MP, Conservative candidate against Mike Callaway. He's a Liberal MP. Anyways, Anna's vehicle got smashed with a rock. Okay, and before anybody can investigate what had actually happened, a person posted that this is because of politics, because it's polarizing, which was totally false. If people read the comments, it was actually somebody had said this is most likely a direct result of her employment as a lawyer. That could be very well be the point, but to jump on the political radicalization already, it spread like wildflower. And if I would have been Anna, I would have been really, really upset, and I would have told that person to take that post off. I will win this election based on my own education and my own integrity. I don't need you to polarize and radicalize people in my favor. And this is exactly what's going to happen. Donald Trump did the same thing. It's tragic what happened to him, but he capitalized on that situation right away. And I wouldn't be surprised if Pierre Poilievre does the same thing right before the election.
Nope. Wouldn't surprise me
Guaranteed he
either.
will.
Yep.
Guaranteed. Because he's going play by play. We can see this. We started this when we first started this whole thing, and he started going all over the place on his pretty much 3 year vacation of touring Canada, because I don't really know what the heck he was supposed to have done. Uh, we saw the original. We saw the original. And then the glasses came off. And then we noticed that the clothes started to change. And we slowly see that, what was it, one piece at a time started to change? So what? Are we then saying, look at, I'm not a person who notices color, but when you go from pasty white to get an orange tinge to you, I would question, is there a problem with your liver? No. Okay, so then what's your tan going on? What are you doing? Right? What are you trying to idolize? Because if that's what you're idolizing, we don't need that here and we don't want it here. So you can take that and go to wherever you want to with that. You can go down, hang out with whomever in Mar-a-Lago and do whatever you want to do. But the fact is that you can see that this is happening. And Calvin, you nailed it correctly. We won't say the name of the person with the mustache, but I read something there today, and everything that in the article was going was point per point per point per point, exactly what is happening here. And people don't want to pay attention to that. There are still people in this world who believe that entire situation that happened with the little orange man didn't exist. That blows my mind that you don't understand that. I don't get that. And people are not believing what is happening. They're not seeing that, oh, that's not what he's doing, uniting the country. No, that's not uniting the country. There's no unification happening here with the conservatives and the liberals and the rest of the country. And to go back to the point of the implosion, you can see that because unfortunately, Jagmeet is really taking on quite a Trump style attitude on how he's pushing everything. And that is not the party of the NDP. And that's what I can't figure out. What are we doing here? Again, I have to look at it. I'm going to go with an economist. Who knows? Let's see now. You have a doctorate, right? Like I would hope that you're going to know what's going on in the world, at least, when it comes to the financial situations. Again, people screamed and hollered, they wanted no carbon tax. Okay, fine. No carbon tax. That's gone now. That was the only thing that the little man is pushing for. Well, guess what? Carney already took that over. Now what do you got? Because everything else, you just want to cancel everything else. Well, people have children. People need to have medications. There are people who are above the age of 70. They need to have those extra incomes and things like that. And everything that he's done, he's voted against everything. So why would we want him as leading this country? He's not going to do anything for anybody. Like, that's the whole point. Yeah.
Yeah, Jagmeet Singh
Hang
is
on, Calvin. Sorry, Calvin. I'm going to interrupt for just a second. I got to do a plug for the show, and then I want to mention something that you mentioned and go back to it and see what you think. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. I am Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. Remember, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring. Beaver Politics has shows 7 days a week, multiple times a day. No matter what your flavor of host, you're going to find somebody on Beaver Politics that you can connect with. I am here every Saturday at 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern. Now, Calvin, you mentioned, and I've spoken about this on a number of occasions, we do live in very much a comfortable society where most of our generations that are alive today, strife and conflict are something that we remember from the past. And I wonder if the shock value of COVID wasn't so much the disease itself, but it rocked some of that complacency, because I honestly believe that one of the reasons that people have fought so hard against particular ideas in our environment is the fact that if COVID can simply come in and start killing people and we really don't have an answer, it sort of ruins that mindset that we control everything all of a sudden. And for a lot of people, that knowledge that they really aren't safe, that things can just step into the world that completely rock us to our foundations. I wonder if that had more to do with it than the disease itself. It was the shock and awe value of it that people suddenly realize there are still things in this world that we don't control.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, you have the psych. as a father, as a protector of my children, not being able to protect my children for something that I can't see or physically assault, destroyed me. I was hiding in my house. And now think about my perspective, and now think about everybody else in Canada or the world around itself. It's destroyed the human nature. It's destroyed the compassion that we all feel towards one another. And that is the major end result of this virus. It's dehumanized us to the point that we are starting to behave like animals. And
Uh,
this is why it's very polarized. That's your perspective. And just to touch up on back on Jagman. Jagman seen maybe pivoting his campaign because he knows what the political atmosphere is right now. He knows that rage baiting and aggression gets votes. So he may be adjusting his campaign to that. I've said, I don't know how many number of times that Mark Carney has to have psychologists on board his campaign, fine tuning his messages to be most effective to break this rage baiting cycle that Mark Carney is Pierre Poilievre is practicing, because it's easy to rage manipulate, and rage will get you more votes. So Mark Carney I'm sure he has brilliant political strategists. This is what Kamala Harris did in the United States. She ran a beautiful national campaign, but she did not have a psychologist trained in breaking the narcissistic cycle on her campaign. If she did, and if that psychologist had direct influence on the type of messaging that was going out, she
Mm.
would have been wildly more successful than she was. I
Uh,
personally believe.
I do agree with you on that one as well, Calvin, because let's look at who has he been spending his time with on YouTube, right? Think about who has Polyev been spending his time with on YouTube.
Jordan Peterson.
Exactly. Right? So he has gotten into and said, hey, well, he's not working anymore, but he still has the information. So even though he doesn't have the official paper to say, yep, this is how I can do this, I can treat people, well, that's okay. I still have all the knowledge. So this is what we can do. And it is exactly as you said, because there have been so many dog whistles that have gone off with Polyev, and people are just immune to it. I swear they don't even notice that it's happening. But it gets, again, it's like the whole concept of the only one who can hear that whistle is the dog, right? But they're not picking up on it.
No.
They hear it, but they're not picking up on it. They're not connecting that this is really not the good information that I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to be feeling this way. They're not seeing that because they think that he is going to deliver for them. And I hate to say it. I can't wait to see the expression on their face when they realize, what the heck have I done? Because we've all seen it happening down south.
Yeah.
We've seen what has happened below the border, and we know there are people that are trying to get up in here because they know it is going to get a heck of a lot worse down below in the U.S. And here, well, they're hoping that we're not going to have that whole mega, maple come over here and really just get in and take things. Yeah, that's how I'm seeing it anyway.
It's a lot more dangerous than we actually perceive it. See, in the United States, they thought Kamala Harris was going to come in, but rather than doing a national campaign, Trump employed small Facebook groups, back channel influencers that continue to rage bait people and divide people. And I see this here in my island too. I guarantee you, in your communities, if you checked on Facebook groups, you will find groups on there that are rage baiting, passing on propaganda that's coming from Russia and the United States in those chat rooms. And people are actually indoctrinating their own loved ones by inviting them into these groups where they're first they feel welcomed. Everyone says hello. You get that sense of family. They suck you in. Not long after that, they start indoctrinating you with a lot of this misinformation, and
Isn't that what a
people
cult does?
exactly
There you go.
they've managed to take a very unfortunate event such as COVID and a lower level of critical thinking in society and mastered a campaign strategically designed to take advantage of the human condition. And it's worked beautifully in the United States. And it's probably going to work here. I'm not convinced with the polls that Mark Carney's leading or this or that. I'm
Exactly.
seeing firsthand on my boots in the ground, that Cape Breton, the island that I live in, is still conservatively manipulated
It
towards
is.
voting for them. And
It
this is
is. You are
exactly
correct.
what's going to happen in Canada. I've tried reporting to CSIS that this is foreign interference, but my computer wouldn't go through. I tried talking to the police. I tried talking to politicians. I've tried talking to the local MP that was stationed in Ottawa, and blows my mind. He didn't listen. I don't know if he believed me or not, but I see it. I know it. I see what's going on in these channels. I joined these channels because it was the best place to hear gossip.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily was hearing gossip, but I know that I'm getting a
Every
lot more information of truth than I am
everybody
hearing
loves
from
gossip,
anybody
right?
else. Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, you're right.
it was quiet for years, these groups, and now all of a sudden, when the election, actually, Pierre Poilievre came to visit Cape Breton first, and about 2 weeks after, boom, all of a sudden, these chat rooms just exploded. So I don't know if Pierre Poilievre was here to set the infrastructure up, to set his campaign headquarters to be digital, to have all these bots come after people. I don't know. I can only speculate, but yeah, I found it weird that for years it was silent, and all of a sudden it exploded with propaganda.
Can't do the whole here. I'll come and sit down. And Calvin, you know this happened because I remember my grandfather sitting in Inverness had the same thing happen. And the old politician would come in with a nice bottle, and we're going to sit down and have a drink, right? That's what it used to be all the time. Well, you can't do that anymore. Maybe that is post COVID, and for that I won't be too upset. But yeah, like there has always been buying of votes, and people, I don't know if people just didn't realize that it was happening or what. I mean, again, if you knew where the money was coming from for Doug Ford, that he paid for those $200 checks that happened, well, that was healthcare money that was supposed to have been taken care of with COVID how many years ago, right? And it still wasn't. So how did that happen? Like, what's happening if we've got all of this, and yet he's still sitting there yap 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 and thinking that he's, everyone's saying, hey, great, you're really on our side. But are you really on everybody's side? Like, really? Are you really on everybody's side? I mean, Ontario, I get it. It is the most populated province that we have. And granted, because they have that bridge, they do have the ability to, come back and forth. There's probably a lot of people who either are Americans that work in Canada or Canadians that work down in the States because there's the bridge, hey? I don't know how many people constantly shop down at Walmart, so, right, it's cheaper there. And that's the issue. But there's something about him that I got like, it's still kind of sketchy. I don't trust what he is saying, and I think that in putting so much of thinking that Ford is the guy, oh yeah, he's really trying to help us. Well, I don't really think he is trying to help anybody. Like, I think he's trying to help himself,
Yeah.
and
I
that's what I
don't.
think it is. And I do believe that he is trying to jump to the party to federal politics, and I do believe he is trying to take over the Conservatives.
I 100% agree with Beautiful. Sorry, I don't know your whole name. I live in Ontario. I've never trusted Doug Ford. I also agree with Calvin. We are a mix-up right now. I know we're tired of going back and forth between conservative and liberal. And it would be amazing to have a third party that was as strong or just as strong but they let us down. So anyway, let's forget about that. Ford is not, in my personal opinion, of living here for 90% of my life, helping Ontario whatsoever. I don't know how he got in again. I honestly don't. Because we all discussed that in Ontario there's a saying, Doug Ford's not a conservative, he's a liberal. Okay? And that means a lot. So how we got back in, I just don't know. I don't know what's going on. The other thing that bothers me is COVID. To me, I'm listening to you. I'm agreeing with all of you. But COVID kind of seemed to me a time when politicians could take over through the sneaky back door. I'd like your opinion on that.
Well, it's always, to my mind, been a question: was it set up that way so they could take advantage of it, or did it simply come along and they took advantage of it? Because at the end of the day, uh, I think conservatives will pounce on. While yes, they absolutely have a game plan, no question about it. I also believe that anything that kind of tumbles into their laps, that they will utterly exploit it and take advantage of it if they feel that it connects with the audience that they're after. So I just wanted to quick plug here. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. I am Mr. Radical. The show is Radicalized here on the Beaver Politics Network. I'm hoping if somebody from our international audience is watching, somebody that isn't from North America, I've left a spot open for you. Please invite yourself up. We'd love to have an international perspective to what's going on. Remember, tapping is clapping, sharing is caring, and if you miss one of our Beaver Politics episodes, you can catch us on YouTube, and you can also join us here on Discord. So I I think, Grandma Sandy, it's like I said, to my mind, it's the entire COVID question is, if it was set out on purpose, it was meant to be taken advantage of. What those reasons are debatable. If it's simply something that got into the public, which I tend to believe that's more the case, whether it was by accident or on purpose, again, that's harder to. But what it did is it really sent shockwaves, like I said, through our population, because I think, like like I mentioned, a lot of people had to come to grips with the fact that we now have things in our population that we simply don't have controls for. And for so many people living in this society that felt so safe and comfortable, that loss of that safety and comfort is what has been exploited by both sides, although the conservatives more so, because it's far easier to increase rage while someone is already there than to put them into the rage bracket. So once they get people into that rage baiting motion in their head where their amygdala is engaged, they want to continue to pound on it to increase the amount of stress that the brain is under and not allow the amygdala to essentially shut off. It's a brain science game that they are using against us. Calvin?
It'd be cool if we got somebody from Germany to come up, because I know that they had a very radical right wing party, and that right wing party was assisted and aided by propaganda from Elon Musk, but they lost, and all the other parties kind of shunned them and said, nope, you're not going to have a say in our government. Bye. It'd be cool to have somebody from there. But to go back to the psychology of COVID and everything, the whole world is acting very animalistic. And if you can look back in history and you look at human beings have always fought over resources. Um, and this is what you're seeing all over the world now. Everyone's fighting over in Ukraine for what? Because of their land and resources and materials. This is why the United States wants us, because of our oil and because of our natural resources. So society has digressed back to the point that we're fighting over resources again, which is very, very strange to me. And to go to Beautiful's point, the conservatives will use anything to their advantage to win an election, and they will lie. And the Republicans and the conservatives are one and one. They are inseparable in ideology. Donald Trump in
Agreed.
the United States promised no taxes for everybody, no taxes. We're going to take tax off tips. We're not going to touch your Medicaid. We're not going to touch your what was that? Your 401k. We're not going to touch any of that. And what did they do as soon as they came in? Gutted the entire system. And this is the exact same playbook Pierre Poilievre is using. He's baiting people. He's promising all these promises to all these people that are frustrated, that need help, and he's promising the world. And what he's going to do is he's going to turn around and cut all of their uh, um, social network and gut the federal agency. He's promised a 2.25% tax cut for everybody. Now he misrepresented it and said, "Oh, I'm going to take 15% off of everybody," which is total BS. But anyways, he's taking 2.25% off of all taxes. Now, in order to make that kind of promise, you have to cut money from somewhere else within the federal government. And just so happens, pharmacare, dental, and our family child bonuses we get monthly if you have children is the exact same amount as 2.25% a year. So how is he going to give you a 2.25% tax cut if he's not planning on paying for it with that? People have to realize that I don't trust any politician whatsoever. A politician will tell you anything just to get into power. Base your decision on a politician on their actions, both in the past and in the present. Never trust them at their word. So a lot of these people, I wholeheartedly understand they're gravitating towards Pierre Poilievre because he's promising them the world, but he's going to turn around and he's going to screw every Canadian. This is exactly what he's doing with the carbon tax, the industrial carbon tax. He's on full intent on us being beholden to the United States. He's said that he wants to now get rid of the industrial carbon tax. Mark Carney secured trade agreements with the EU, and this is a large reason why we've been resilient, I don't know what you call it. English is my friend for English, but to the trade war that the United States has declared on us. It's because Mark Carney went to the EU, secured trading agreements, and those trading agreements are based on a mutual industrial carbon tax. If we take the industrial carbon tax off of our industry, we will no longer be able to trade with the European Union. Effectively, nobody in the entire world will trade with us except for the United States. He is openly telling you what he's doing and what he's going to do without giving you the details of it. He's only manipulating you to make it sound pretty. But if he does that, we will essentially be the 51st state through spirit, just like how Belarus is an extension of Russia. Canada will be an extension of the United States. Donald Trump knows this. He even said you can keep your national anthem and you can keep the Canadian name. I have no problems with that. he knows the plan. He knows what's going on.
Yep, I would totally agree. Rational thoughts will get you on. Can I get a name and an age and a rough location for you, please? Rational thoughts, are you there?
Sorry about that. I didn't realize my mic was off. I'm 62 years old and I live in Niagara.
Niagara. Welcome to the show, Rational. You've been listening in. What do you have to say on this?
Well, I don't think that Polyev is as bad as Trump because I don't think too many people could be as bad as Trump. And that's not a defense of Polyev. Um, I just think that Polyev's big plan is big business, just like Trump is big business. He has used Trumpian slogans through his entire campaign. He stands in front of podiums that say Canada first, and it means something. It means something when you have Canada first, but you're following behind somebody that said America first. It would mean something totally different if it was original, but it's not. And so I think we have to be fairly cautious about what his agenda is. It's just natural to compare him to Trump because he doesn't do anything to avoid that comparison. He's never really had a plan. He has slogans, but he's never explained how he's going to do things. And I don't know a lot about how Carney will behave as prime minister, but at least he seems to be an adult.
Yep.
He seems to be a statesman. He has the respect of Donald Trump, I believe, as much as Donald Trump will give respect. But what more importantly, and he doesn't really need Trump's respect, more importantly, he has the respect of Europe. Europe knows him very well because of Brexit,
Yep.
and he's well liked. I love how the talking points on the conservative side is that he can't be trusted because he ruined England or the UK because of Brexit. He was against Brexit. It was never his idea. He came in to make sure they didn't go right off the rails. That's what, and he's still liked in UK. So I mean, the fact that he's liked in UK tells me he did a good job. The fact that he's leading in the polls right now, if you can believe the polls, I happen to believe the polls. The fact that he's leading the polls tells me that Canadians like him too. They remember the banking crisis. They remember his calm demeanor, his confidence, his knowledge about economics. And that's what we really need right now. We don't need someone who I believe, because he's like Trump, will be a weak leader.
Yep.
Can I chime in there?
You betcha, Calvin.
I totally wholeheartedly agree with you. I'm just gonna say I want to believe the polls. But I'm trying to not be influenced. I don't want to be disappointed if there is a disappointment. Basically,
I,
I don't want
I
to be
agree.
brokenhearted. So we have a very strong opportunity because we see what's going on to the south of us. So we have a chance there. Also, our education system is much different from the United States. The United States is very profit-oriented, private schools, Christian schools. So a lot of indoctrination happens within those schools. And so our education system here in Canada, we have an advantage. So we have a lot of, I don't know what they would call it. We have a lot of more woke Canadians, I guess. I get, but woke is a bad word in some places. Huh?
I
I don't
like to
know.
say we are empathetic.
Empathetic, yeah, exactly. And
Yep.
that brings me to my second point. Donald Trump is running his country like a business. And in business, you have no empathy. You see people as resources to be exploited. And that's the very nature of capitalism. You cannot run a country based on a business model and a capitalistic model, taking advantage of your resources and your human components. You have to run it on a humanistic nature because basically, and this is why uh, politicians always get the hard flack, but they have enough thick skin to take it because they know in their hearts they know they're doing is good for the majority of the population. And this is where Justin Trudeau got a lot of hate. But he did the right decisions when it mattered. And he did take a lot of flack for it, but did he made those decisions based on the humanity of this country. And that for that, he's a true statesman, and he'll probably go down in history as one of the greatest statesmen in this country.
I would agree that history will treat him a lot better than this particular era of Canada will.
Yeah, I would agree with both of you. One of the things that I struggle with the conservative side and all of their messaging is I totally get that the opposition party is supposed to hold the party that is in power, up to a certain standard, which I totally get. But the reality is as far as the conservatives in any policy, I've yet to hear the conservatives actually say what their policy looks like for pretty much anything, I think. But when Calvin mentioned that you have to look beyond people's words and look at their actions, if we look for what the conservatives have actually voted for and not voted for over the last 10 years, the story comes out pretty clearly. They are anti women, they are pro business. Your abortion rights probably will go out the window if you allow them in, and we will side with America at the end of the day, because none of their policies actually reflect anything to do with advancing Canadians. All they do is bitch and complain about what the current government is doing. So they, as a friend of mine of our families once said, basically, I only care enough to complain. And that's really the stance that I get, unfortunately, from the conservatives. They'll bitch about it all day long, but when you actually confront them, what are you going to do about it? They don't have any damn answers for anything. Mickey Mouse, welcome to the show. Could I get your age and a rough location for you?
Yeah, hey everyone. Sorry, can you hear me okay?
You betcha. Welcome to the show. Can I get an age and a rough location for you?
Yeah, 21, located in Kingston, Ontario.
Welcome to the show, Mickey. You've been listening in. What do you have to say?
Well, I did have something to say, but I think that conversation kind of switched a little bit, so I think I'll just keep listening and maybe I'll give my spot to someone else now.
All right. Thanks very much,
Thanks.
Mickey.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to make a comment or he's gone. We have a very. This is why I decided to get involved. I never really cared about politics in Canada, but when I saw the patterns of what was going on and the potential dangers to Canada, I got involved. Not for myself, but for my kids. If they're still young, they still have a bright future ahead of them, and I want a country that they can call safe and home. And this is why I've worked trying to get First Nation leaders all across Canada to get involved and prevent a conservative majority from getting control. Because a lot of people don't realize, but First Nation communities, we typically don't get involved in federal election because it's not our system, and we feel that it doesn't impact us. But our community leaders have to realize that this election is much more critical than whatever election has ever come before this, because this man is actually talking about taking treaty rights away and
Exactly.
taking the 1982 Constitution away from Canada, which gives us our Charter of Rights and Freedoms and recognizes First Nation rights. And number three, gives the autonomy of every province to control their own resources and their own laws and their own jurisdiction. Now, if you take that 1982 Constitution away, you're effectively centralizing power in Ottawa and basically ceasing to be the democracy that we recognize here in Canada. This is the danger that I see. And my people across Canada, the First Nation people, have a direct influence on basically 9 conservative seats. They can take out the 9 conservatives that are MPs right now and replace them with either NDP or Liberals or Green Party, whatever ridings you in. That's why votesmart.com, vote vote in smartvoting.com.ca is so important. Um, but even the seat like Michelle Ferrari is in, she has enjoyed that seat because First Nation communities don't really get involved. Last election, there's about 2,600 votes in her riding itself. If that if those two communities went against Michelle Ferrari, she wouldn't be an MP today. And the vote is critical. This election is critical. My only concern is to protect Canada from Pierre Poilievre. After him, I'll be safe. I'll be content.
You're not the only one, Calvin. You're not the only one, because I go back and I think of these things like we talk about everyone who goes on and makes the claim that the guy down south is a great businessman. Well, you don't go bankrupt 3 times and still get to wear the title of good businessman. That does not work. That doesn't jive. And when I see that the former minister of infrastructure only built a handful of homes, and yet is a landlord that owns how many different properties, on top of the fact that his own property that he owns, that he has his residence actual in Ontario, not far from Parliament, is being rented out, and he's living in a house separately, and you're getting taxpayer dollars on top of that. Like, it's not making any sense. And the people that are living in your apartments that you're renting them out are members of your party that don't live in the area. So you're making the money off of the taxpayers' allotment that's provided to these people to come to do their job. You see here? There's a businessman right there. There's the
I
only thing that he's managed to accumulate.
I
And
actually
that's what bothers me about that whole situation. You're talking about building homes, but you're not building homes. You want to pocket he's talking about pocketing the money himself. And
yeah.
it's quite worrisome on what's going on there.
No, I totally agree with the housing. I'm going to make a quick point there. With Donald Trump, I actually think he's a really good businessman. You know why? He has taken advantage of the system.
That's a con man, though, I think.
He's a con
I
man. He's
agree.
maintained his wealth in the United States by ripping
Nah.
by
I,
ripping up Wait, just hear me out.
Yep.
He's taken advantage of the laws and the tax code to rip off people, continuing to borrow money and just move on to the next victim over and over again. That's why he is smart. I think.
But how
The sec.
come?
Well, if you know the story of his family
Oh
That's
yeah.
and
right.
where the money came from,
Yep.
like Trump's
His
grandfather came
daddy
from
paid
Germany,
for it.
and he came here, or came to the U.S. He was a barber. He wanted to open up his barber shop. He did in New York. He did a great job. He was very successful. So much so, he opened up another location, and then he realized this is great. Everyone do this. Well, boom, the gold rush comes in. What does he do? He packs up. I'm going to open a hotel. This is where this starts. So he opens the hotel. Everything's going great. Everything's fabulous. People are coming in and out, blah, 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 blah. Well, then this stream has now, okay, we're gone dry. Oh, wait a minute. But if we go further up north, there's more gold. Okay, the man took his hotel apart, piece by piece, put it on a barge, and sent it up and rebuilt the thing back. Now, when the whole boom and the bust came, and there's now no more gold, he decides, okay, now I'm going to go back. I'm going back to Germany. Germany says to him, we don't want you now. You didn't want to stay here. We're not letting you back in. He comes back to the U.S. He then goes back and opens up another hotel, and this is where this starts. All of those big buildings that are in the U.S., in New York, that were built by Fred Trump, again, all through federal money, he claimed halfway through he's looking for more money after they gave it to him. And a big committee said, well, where's the money that we gave you? Like, you're not really showing us anything here. Comes to find out, he pilfered half of that, putting that away. So any money that the Trump family actually had from Fred is because it was stolen government money. The
I know
story of
that.
everything that comes on there is ridiculous. How that entire family came to be.
Oh
No, I
yeah.
know that, but you got to give it credit where credit is due. He took advantage of a system that
But
had
that's a
loopholes.
con man, though. That's
That's
not a
the con.
He's
businessman.
It's not a okay. Let's not call him businessman. Let's call him a good con artist, and
That's
he
well, you'd be a
mastered the
con
yeah.
artist.
system.
That's the only thing you're good at. The
Yes.
only thing he's good at, because Lord knows the hair's not working, and neither is that fake tan. So
and that's
let's be honest here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
that's the exact same thing with the housing system with Pierre Poilievre's plan. Mark Carney introduced a housing plan that actually benefits regular Canadians with first-time home buyers.
Mhm.
First-time home buyers are going to save the GST, and even if 90% of our home buyers are buying an existing home, now if you renovate that existing home, you still qualify for that 15%. Now, Pierre Poilievre's plan is an unlimited amount of times you can claim that GST. So how, and it's only for new builds. So how many regular Canadians can actually afford to build a home brand new? Not very many. It's maybe
No,
what
yeah.
5 to 10%.
Oh, not
No,
that
So
high, I don't think.
not at that.
Not even that. I
not even
worked in
that.
real
So
estate. You
this
get it's big
No.
bucks. You need big
so
Mhm.
money to buy a home.
So this
Exactly.
plan that he gave out is actually designed for wealthy people within Canada to capitalize. This is what frustrates me. The most wealthiest people in our country are are the biggest welfare bums to our
Mhm.
country. And that's the same thing with the United States. And they look down upon us, the regular people that actually need these social programs. When they're the biggest bums of all. They're the ones stealing from the country. Like, I'm sorry, it just annoys the crap out of me.
Well, and
Alvin, I know.
sorry to jump in.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Russell.
The majority of his tax cuts for housing on Poilievre's side are to benefit the developers. What do you think the developers are going to do? They're going to take that savings and just pocket it. Doesn't do
Exactly it.
anything for the home buyers in comparison to Carney by removing the GST for the first time home buyers. That's something that goes directly to it. And all Pierre did was throw out a bigger number by saying, "Oh, I'm going to do it on $1.3 million." Well, if you can't afford a house that's quote $1 million, you sure as shit can't. That extra 300K isn't going to make a difference to someone.
Exactly.
Right.
Hi, everyone. By the way,
Hi.
Welcome to the show, Canadian.
I go by Grip.
All right, welcome to the show, Grip. Grandma Sandy, we haven't heard you chime in for a bit. Let's get back up. Let's get back up to you here.
Well, I'm listening closely, and I agree with a lot of points that everybody's saying. And I think I'm going to drop down for the moment because I want to catch up a little bit more. I'd like to hear some new things, though. We already know what Pierre Poilievre is doing. We know what he voted against and blah, blah, blah. I'd like to learn something new. So I'm hoping someone like Calvin has taught me a lot tonight. Beautiful's taught me a lot. Everyone's taught me something. But if we could get off of Pierre's slogans and what he's voted against in the past and what new is happening. Because I feel like I have an obligation. My 40-year-old children asked me today, who are you voting for? And I said, not Pierre Poilievre. And I'd like to have some more reasons besides my research to tell them, if that makes any sense. But thank you, everybody. It's been an amazing night listening to you. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you again.
Thanks, Grandma Sandy.
Take
If you
care,
want to give
Sandy.
them an excuse to vote, just tell them the reason why I'm not voting for him is I want to keep our country sovereign and independent and strong. So
Oh,
all the
I
reasons.
have done that. Oh, most definitely. I'm a strong supporter. But thank you, Calvin. Good night,
Before
everybody.
Good night,
Take
Grandma
care.
Sandy. Thanks for coming in. Before anybody jumps in here, if you're just joining the show, welcome everybody. The show is Radicalized. I am your host, Mr. Radical. I am here at 6 o'clock every Saturday, 6 o'clock Mountain, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Beaver Politics is on 7 days a week. We are about the people because we are the people. Now, if you're watching and you're not here from North America, I hope that you're gonna invite yourself in. I'm gonna keep the one box open here. So if you're not living in North America, I'd love if you'd pop into the box here and give us a little bit more of an international flavor to what's happening with the conversation here. But the original conversation was based around our two-party system. And Angela, we'll go back to you right away here. But the original conversation was about how we're kind of getting railroaded into a two-party system because Canada can't seem to operate a competent third party because we basically in the last 3 months watched the NDP have a complete meltdown.
As an NDP voter for most of my voting life, minus a few years early on when I was green, I'm frankly quite disappointed in the way they've shot themselves in the foot.
Angela, I'll get you to respond there, and then Grip will go back to you.
Okay, first of all, Canadian Grib, nice seeing you again.
You as well, Angela.
It's factual, right? Because Jen Meat has gone to an extreme where he's actually going towards the conservative way of addressing the campaign by his attacks, right? We lost support. I lost support in him when he ripped up the agreement. I know that he had a lot of backsplash and concerns to Pierre and everything like that, but I don't think he should have given in to him. I felt like he gave in to him, and that's what brought us into this position. I'm glad Mark Carney did get elected in, right, as the prime minister, like designated prime minister, because we did need a change. But I still supported Justin Trudeau. But, you know, in the circumstances like this, when you have 2.5 years of misleading, dividing our country, smear campaign against, at that time, Justin Trudeau, and the risks involved, like Calvin said, with our country. Remember 212 years ago when, America tried to invade us, right? And I live in this area where we have the reenactment every year, based on a family that was held captive and put in their basement, and they're doing reenactment there, right? And it's a reminder. This is a reminder. 212 years ago, again, potentially our country could be at risk. And I feel that with Pierre, because his type of politics and his involvement with Harper, I feel that we'd be at risk because I believe, I believe that he would give our resources away. I do. I believe that he would make us a 51 state.
Yeah. I see some comments there that I didn't vote for Mark Carney. This is a parliamentary system here in Canada. You don't vote for the prime minister, you vote for MPs, and the MPs decide who the prime minister is. Okay, just to be clear out there, this is not the United States. We do not vote for a president. We vote for members of parliament, and members of parliament vote for who is the